Who's the greatest band around? Makes the cats jump up and down. Who's the talk of Rhythm Town? Five guys named Mo.
Of course. John Cross is here. So too is Danny Murphy. The FA. Now, extraordinary for me, as usual, the Football Association, but none more so than the five old white-haired white men who've come out and slagged off their former employees today.
Well, I think Greg Dyke took the biscuit, basically, absolutely ridiculing the FA's reign and alluding to that point, the lack of perhaps the diversity and the lack of change and reform during the FA. And it's just remarkable. The lack of self-awareness from those guys is astonishing, because none of them have brought about change. And look, the point is that basically they are limited in what they can do, because the one thing in the FIFA constitution, if you like, is you cannot have too much you can't have any political involvement. Blimey, one national newspaper has led their back page on saying we could be kicked out of the World Cup if the reforms take place. Well, it's just not going to happen. It's just not, because basically, if anywhere near comes to that, then basically they just back away. And I'm afraid to say that's exactly what will happen again. I think there'll be some reform. I think there'll be some change. And in fairness, the FA have tried to do that within their own way. But, the lack of self-awareness from these five guys is just unbelievable. And Damien Collins, let's be honest here, he is widely quoted. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, more than that for me. So we've got Lord Treesman. I'm going to mention them all. He did really well, didn't he? Greg Dyke, who everyone says, he's done really well wherever he's gone, but he's done well for Greg Dyke. David Davis. Well, you always want to stand near a... Well, I don't know. What did they say about him? He was the great survivor, wasn't he, at the Football Association? So he came in alongside Graham Kelly, didn't he? And he was a press officer, and then suddenly he's a communications director, and then he's the acting chief executive, wasn't he? But he never lost that tag of acting, did he?
No.
So here's the third one, and then there's...
Oh, you two are sitting on the fence.
David Bernstein, because he was the one who invented that slogan.
Yeah, but the only thing...
And the other one was
he
Alex Horn.
At Tottenham.
Alex Horn, who for 6 years was the General Secretary. Anyway, why I'm annoyed about all five of those at this particular point, forget about everything that's going on at the moment with the child sexual abuse cases in football and everything else. The FA are at a low ebb. This is a clinically thought of time to move in here. Basically say it's not fit for purpose, there's got to be this reform, we've got to do this, we've got to do that. There are still, never mind the old white men who sort of stop everything, there are an awful lot of young, very decent people up and down the country who work for the FA. And what must they be thinking at the moment? I tell you what these five grey-haired men are hoping that they're thinking is... we've got them now, that people within will see that there are some people still championing this, and perhaps it'll emerge and we'll go elsewhere. But the big problem with this is all five of them never got the better of Richard Scudamore and the Premier League.
Well, the Premier League is king.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. The other point about David Conn, actually,
this is a fight about the professional game and the amateur game.
Fabulous tweet earlier about Greg Dyke. The other point was about Greg Dyke was he made that about 100 people were done.
Yeah.
And left so his reign left the FA at an all-time low ebb.
And forgive me as well.
Lack of direction.
He said this was one of the reasons that I had to leave. Wasn't he voted out?
He took a decision, I think, to go, knowing that he wouldn't get back in again.
Anyway, Greg Clark, who's now obviously the FA chairman, said this today. In recent weeks, we've seen terrible allegations of non-recent child sexual abuse in football. The FA has now published the full terms of reference for a review into the issues arising from those allegations, which will be led by Clive Sheldon. And he goes on to talk about that. He also says, I also want to share my response to the letter which has today been released by 5 former FA chairmen and executives earlier today. Personally, I believe the timing of this intervention is ill-judged. However, we must acknowledge that the letter raises important questions about the governance of the FA. And he goes on to say that, I mean, you know, they're at war. Everyone's at war with that, aren't they, at the moment? But as Richard Scudamore had his word tonight, isn't he? And he's gone, bah! He says, all I can say about them is they're all ex.
Yeah, well, I have to say, I think that the Premier League is king. It produces the best league in the world, some of the best football, most exciting football in the world, and I'm afraid to say that the FA almost imploding and basically going on the attack as they are against the Premier League, well, it's a self-defeating.
Big Mo, little Mo, four-eyed Mo, no Mo. Look at brother. They're talking about me now. Look at brother. Shut up your big mouth, boy. Look at brother. Eat more. Eat more. Mo, 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 mo. Who's the greatest band around? Makes the cats jump up and down. Who's the talk of Rhythm Town? 5 guys named Mo.